I think the important thing about having an aspirational quality when you do a joint venture, a vehicle big enough to encompass everyone's dreams are very
Yeah.
important. And then the next one that is really critical, it's a movement. Because I think most people approach a joint venture from like, hey, what can you do for me? Mail my stuff. As opposed to creating a vehicle, a movement that encompasses everyone's dreams.
We talk to people about something that's aspirational, or we talk to them about, a joint venture. We have to be as transparent and as real as we possibly can. Because you can play this game and pretend like that's what you want. But everybody's gonna smell that on you. Everybody has an agenda. To pretend like you don't have an agenda, like, well, okay, are you Jesus then? Okay, but even Jesus had an agenda.
Yes, he did.
His agenda was to save you. Yeah, and some people operate in the world where they believe that there are winners and losers, and the guy across the table has to be the loser if I'm the winner.
So, you know Joe Vitale, and I think one of the best stories that you have ever told me was what went on behind the scenes in how they put together the marketing for The Secret. Because The Secret blew up, right? It blew up into worldwide phenomenon. All these people came in and it kind of started the whole movement about law of attraction and stuff. But there's kind of interesting story behind it, and how, like, Rhonda had an idea, a vision to turn something that was otherwise a universal law, a lot of people know about it, into like a movement. So what was the story there?
Joe told the story to me over a dinner while this campaign was unfolding. Rhonda had already done the inception event. Now, as I understand it, there's this thing called Transformational Leadership Council.
Yeah, TLC.
Yeah, TLC, right? And it's basically where all of these, like, to put it bluntly, it's a bunch of self-help gurus promoting their stuff.
They got a big
and
list.
They all get together and they label it as like, transformational leadership. But, I'm pretty sure they're, plotting and scheming marketing there too, right?
A lot of times, I bet.
I'm sure, right? So Rhonda gets invited to this thing, and in her full credit and genius, she basically creates deals with people where she got a filmmaker to buy in on the idea, and then the filmmaker came along with her, and then she told all of the members of Transformational Leadership Council that they were going to be in a movie. So they were sold on the idea that they were going to be movie stars.
It's an aspirational vision that they have for themselves.
Yeah. So she's being very transparent about the fact that she wants to make a movie, but what's important to them is that they understand that there's something in it for them, right? They're going to be movie stars. Now, side note, they were all promised that they were going to create follow-on products. Hey, we're going to create the movie together. We're not going to pay you for the movie, but you're going to be a movie star, and we're going to create products, and we're going to sell your products later. That second part never happened. Okay? But nobody complained. Why? Because they were legitimately turned into movie stars.
Yeah.
I mean, after The Secret came out, and The Secret sold millions of copies, they're all on Oprah, Larry King. Now, the younger generation doesn't know what that means.
Yeah.
That's like, in this day and age, being on, like, you're going to be on Andrew Tate's channel.
Or Rogan.
Or Rogan. Yeah. Rogan is probably
or
the
Theo
best.
Vaughn. That was what Trump did, and he went to all these podcast things. So it's this version of Oprah.
Yeah, I mean, the younger generation doesn't realize, like, there were, before influencers were a thing, we had these things called TV shows.
Yeah.
you know, but that was the only thing. Imagine there's only like 2 influencers, and you get to be on both of them. Right? The 2 biggest influencers were Oprah and Larry King at the time. And they did them, and then all the other subsidiary shows after that. So anyway, Rhonda, in the course of like 1 or 2 days, has the people come in and sit down and interviews them about law of attraction. Now, this is part of the genius. It's just the beginning of the story. The second part is that whoever they brought in for the marketing, now this I can speak all about because Joe and I have had, very in-depth conversations about it. And Joe's like one of my best friends. So like, I know for a fact, like, how all that went down. So and I saw this happen, and Joe and I had dinner when he visited me in Miami while this campaign was going down, right? Like, at the time, nothing like this had ever happened. It was just genius. All of these guys who were stars of The Secret happened to be guys who had really big email lists.
There we go.
So email lists are, to me, more powerful than social media.
Yeah.
Why? Because your social media channel gets shut down, you're done. That's the only thing you have. But if you have an email list, go ahead and shut my social down.
Yeah.
This is why I've never really leaned into social media, because I got big email lists.
Yeah.
And I got people with big email lists who will mail about me, right? And I got people with big events who invite me to their events. I don't need that. I'm not discounting the power of those things. They're very, very powerful, but it's not the only way to do things.
Yeah.
Right. So all these guys with their big email lists and their websites that have lots and lots of visitors, they started a little banner campaign. All of their websites had a little banner that said, "What is the secret?" And you're like, well, I don't know, what's the secret?
Open loop.
Open loop, right? You click on that link and then you go to a website that says, what is the secret? On this date, we're going to reveal it. Opt in to be notified when we will reveal the secret. It's on their websites. They're emailing about it and saying, hey, there's a movie that's about this thing, about the secret. You don't know what the secret is. I happen to be in it. If you want to be informed when the movie is available, go here.
Yeah.
Right. So they're creating this curiosity campaign that there is this big secret and that the secret is going to be revealed. And it's something that people know and that has been kept hidden from people. So they were kind of revealing this, bit by bit over time. So over time, the conversation about this gets really big. Like back then, we didn't have social media.
Yeah.
We had forums.
Yeah, forums.
Okay. Yeah. So the internet was all kind of relatively new when all this was going on. And in the forums, people were talking about this. Man, have you heard about this thing called The Secret? I don't know, what's that? Check out this link, man. And everybody's talking about it. Like Joe Vitale's talking about it. Bob Proctor's talking about it. All these big name self-help gurus are talking about it. And the buzz just built and built and built and built. After that, so when the movie is released, they have this big, massive launch because all of these people like suddenly hear about it on the day of launch. The Secret people are mailing their list. All of the stars of The Secret are mailing their lists. People are talking about it. Oh my God, it's released. It's the day. Oh my God, I just watched it. It's so amazing. Now, by the way, the whole thing is just a bunch of interviews.
Yes.
That's all it is.
With some B-rolls in between. It's like
it's interviews with B-roll.
Yeah.
But it was so beautifully executed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the soundtrack, getting
the
all
soundtrack
of
was
that.
good. The ancient, they brought in this it's a bit kept secret for longest time. It's like a manuscript and
the editing and
editing
all
was
of that
great.
was just chef's kiss, like perfect. So that's an important part of the thing. If the movie sucked, it would have never really popped off.
Yeah.
Right. When all that was happening, then they started mailing out copies to famous people, to actors and actresses, right? Then you got actors and actresses talking about it. Like they're on their interviews and like, oh my God, well, I learned about this thing called, The Secret. And then Oprah hears about it and now she's like, hey, come on my show. And now she's the Rhonda Byrne and all the people behind this thing are on the biggest platform in the world.
Yeah.
The platform was so big that if you had just once on Oprah, you would have a #1 best-selling book.
Yeah.
And you're set for life.
And I think they got the entire cast to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a whole cast. It wasn't just one person.
Most of the cast.
Yeah.
Joe actually wasn't on Oprah. He was on Larry King, but not on Oprah. And I don't want to. I know this is kind of a sore spot for Joe. He's like, I was never on Oprah, right?
Yeah.
Not that it matters now because he's still super famous because of. I mean, he was famous before that, but The Secret catapulted him to a whole other level.
I think the important thing about having an aspirational quality when you do a joint venture, a vehicle big enough to encompass everyone's dreams are very important. Yeah. And then the next one that is really critical, it's a movement. Because I think most people approach a joint venture from like, hey, what can you do for me? Mail my stuff. As opposed to creating a vehicle, a movement that encompasses everyone's dreams.
So here's the thing, right? So we were talking with the ladies from Loris. And, I asked them a question. I was, asking them, hey, if somebody says that they want to help you, what is your natural reaction? It's like
suspicion.
It's suspicion, right?
Cynicism, skepticism.
Yeah. Why?
Why?
Okay. Yeah. You're assuming that I need help, first of all. And then like, you're not honest about your agenda because of course you have an agenda.
Yeah.
Everybody has an agenda, to pretend like you don't have an agenda. Like, well, are you Jesus then? Okay, but even Jesus had an agenda.
Yes, he did.
His agenda was to save you.
Yeah.
Right. So if Jesus had come out and just said, "Hey, I'm just here to help you," and that's it, like okay, it's not really real, right? So when we talk to people about something that's aspirational, or we talk to them about a joint venture, we have to be as transparent and as real as we possibly can. It has to come legitimately from your heart. Because you can play this game and pretend like that's what you want, but everybody's gonna smell that on you. There's like a vibe about it.
If it's a win-lose kind of thing, people just know. Just like
yeah. And some people operate in the world where They believe that there are winners and losers, and the guy across the table has to be the loser if I'm the winner. I personally think that that's totally bullshit. Why? Because it's a very limited view of the world. If you think that the resources in the world are so scarce that you got to make the other guy win, you don't understand the world. Now, for me, the thing that allows me to just kind of like lay my cards on the table with people and like not care whether or not they do business with me or not is based on epiphanies that I had, right? For me, it's like as a futurist looking at technology and finally understanding like, oh, holy shit, technology is dangerous. By the way, this is the thing that all good science fiction will get you to understand. Like real science fiction is asking a question about the future. What are the consequences? Like if you would invent this technology, you're going to sell it as one thing,
Yeah.
but there are unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. That's the key.
Right? And right now, social media has connected us, but it's also ruined the minds of people.
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. The unintended consequences of the exponential arc of technology right now is such that if we don't have an elevation of consciousness in the world, this world is not going to last. Now, how can I say that with conviction? First of all, nobody can predict the future. Okay, so I would never ask anybody to believe me, but I will say, okay, here are the premises that I believe to be true. You tell me if you come to the same conclusion. And the premises are, one, technology is growing exponentially now. I think everybody can see that.
Yeah.
It's observable. The pace of everything is faster and faster and faster. Like if it took a year for Facebook to get to 1 million users, and then the next fastest company, it took them like, 9 months. We're at a point now where ChatGPT 3.5 was released. It took them 6 weeks, I believe, to get to 1 million users. Right? That's the exponential curve.
Yeah.
Everything is happening faster and faster and faster and faster. Well, think about this. Understand that that's filtered out on like every level of technology, right? Every sector of human endeavor is growing exponentially. So check this. We have 3D printable automatic weapons now, right? And you can buy a printer on Amazon, a 3D printer for $100,
Oh my
US
God.
bucks. Now, if everything's going exponential, how long before we have 3D printable weapons of mass destruction? Now think about that. And maybe it already exists.
Yeah, I was about to say that. We probably already do.
Maybe ChatGPT is the,
Yeah.
maybe AI is the 3D printable weapon of
Yeah.
mass destruction.
Yeah.
It's already there, right under our noses. If you have one 3D printable weapon of mass destruction, it takes one unhappy, disgruntled person to end it for everybody. So when you tell me, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Absolutely. I think it's that Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So now we have great power in the form of technology, but are we responsible, conscious enough to handle this? Because if we are not, then very often the lower self of humans will tend to make weapons, win-lose situations, selfish intentions out of this great technology.
So let's wrap it around when we're talking about self-interest and people not being transparent about their self-interest. See, when they said that in Spider-Man, it was kind of like, man, I feel like I'm being pitched. You know what I mean? Like, be responsible, right? It's good to be a responsible person. Show up in the world and be responsible. It's more than that, because it's about you saving your own skin. Because it's not the responsibility for the other person. It's just asking yourself, do you want to continue to be alive in a world that's livable? And when we can say, hey, man, I want to be very transparent with you and say that, yeah, I feel a connection with other human beings and I feel a sense of responsibility, but I'm not going to be bullshitting anybody and say, anything other than I like my life, I want to continue to live it, and I want to continue to enjoy it. And that means that we can't allow the world to become some kind of a dystopian nightmare, because that dystopian nightmare, nobody wins in that.
So actually the most selfish thing is to create a situation where everybody wins.
100%. That's
the key. Because if you create a win-lose situation, it becomes lose-lose eventually.
Boom.
So, that's the consciousness, the realization that we're not asking people to be a martyr where you self-sacrifice. I bet my mother was a martyr, gave up all her hopes and dreams, and then in a way for this particular thing, but in the end, she ends up bitter and upset.
Yeah, the only way that works is when you tell people that they're going to get 80 virgins in the afterlife. Right. No offense to my Muslim friends, right? But I mean, like, and by the way, on that whole thing, do you know that in Islam, they talk about that people don't realize there's a lot more commonality in all these different religions, right? And not to like insult, there's a lot of people watching this who are probably like, hey, my religion is correct. Fine. But the Muslims will tell you there's a greater jihad and the lesser jihad.
Mm.
The lesser jihad is the fight against the infidel where you blow yourself
Mm.
up. The greater jihad is the fight against the evil in your own heart.
Oh man. Oh yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the real thing. And we have to have like an authentic conversation with ourselves and other people about the fact that like, yeah, I'm not going to bullshit you that
Mm.
that and say I don't have self-interest.
Yeah.
Of course that's false.
Yeah.
Of course it's false.
Yeah. So I think just the ability to go into an interaction, go into business negotiation, finding a vehicle, a movement, a way of integrating everyone's interests together in an elevated manner,
Yeah.
which I think is powerful. As opposed to, hey, can you do something for me? And also it's synergistic. Synergistic means everyone can come together, and instead of me figuring out what your intentions are, or me trying to get you to do something that's good for me and questionably good
Yeah.
for you, we now come together to build something greater.
Yeah.
And so then everybody wins.
So check it out, man. Exactly. And this has to happen on an individual to individual level. Like ultimately, the nation states need to figure this out. But the problem is the people in power in nation states, whoever the real holders of the levers of power are, is that it's going to be very, very hard for them to accept that.
Mm.
Why? Because you ever heard of something called the Thucydides trap?
No.
So Thucydides was a Greek historian, and he was talking about Sparta rising in power when Athens was the supreme power at the time. And Thucydides said that Athens and Sparta had to go to war. Why? Because if, let's say you're the supreme power in the world, if somebody's coming up, you can't allow them to become as powerful as you. Why? Because if they are, and if you believe that it's win-lose, well, if this guy gets as powerful as I am, who's to say how long it's going to take him to become more powerful, and then what's going to stop him from attacking me?
Yeah.
You have to squash
Yeah.
the people below you. And that's the lens through which the people in power see the world. So this cannot happen at a nation state level. This has to happen at a person to person level across international borders. So the people of the world have got to say, hey, I have to make myself prosperous, but I need to figure out a way to do it such that the person in that other country can also be prosperous. Not me going over there and saying, let me give you my charity.
Yeah.
Because you know what people's reaction to charity is?
Mm.
I can help myself. I was poor, man. When people came to me and they're like, I want to give you a handout, I was like, go F yourself.
Mm.
I don't need that. Give me an opportunity, bro. Don't give me a handout. Give me an opportunity. And that opportunity is going to come by structuring things together where you don't have any illusion about your self-interest, and you can create a deal where that person wins and where you win. And legitimately, that's possible because there's a ridiculous volume of resources in the world. And we don't even, that only recently we discovered in the United States that we have a supply of petroleum in the United States that would allow us to be completely independent of petroleum for the rest of the world. And that's a recent discovery.
Yeah.
Like relatively recent.
Yeah.
And to understand that like that's an asset that we just discovered, how many other things are in the world? It's not about the natural resources of the planet. That's a paradigm that they sold us to control us.
Wow. I think that's something that I think needs to go hand in hand together with the rise in tech. Because what you kind of mentioned is the rise in consciousness. I think that's the one thing that is not always around. It's like, if you give people powerful technology, weapons even, or just like tech in general, if their consciousness is not there, then, ultimately they always use it for self-harming purposes. But if the consciousness is there, then they use it for mutually beneficial purposes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-harming or harming the other person. Right?
Nuclear weapons of mass destruction can be weapons of mass construction, weapons of mass benefit also. But of course, then the use of that is a reflection of the consciousness of the people within the side. Hey, I have this great power. Let's bomb each other. It's like,
yeah.
Hey man, why not just do like great things also? So I think that's the one thing that I think is cool to put forth out there. It's just interesting that we are on this path to think about marketing differently. Instead of just direct marketing, right? Where you create something bigger, and when you structure a deal with people, you also create something bigger, and ultimately everyone feels invested, both from a marketing standpoint, narrative standpoint, collaboration standpoint, on how they can work together.
Yeah.
I think that's beyond the conversation of like, I want to use ChatGPT to not have to write a book, or these days people just want to run some ads and
this is the kind of thing we got to be careful about, bro, because part of the elevation of consciousness has to be a conversation about the unintended consequences of technology. When you ask ChatGPT to write that book for you, there's all kinds of unintended consequences there. One of them is your own self-destruction. How? Because you are becoming lazy.
Yeah.
And when you become lazy, you get sick as an entity. You have to be continually challenging yourself.
Growing.
If you allow your mind and your body to atrophy through laziness, you become weak and you die. You get sick and you die. That's what happens to all living things when they stop being challenged. And we're dangerously close to that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think the struggle builds character. It's kind of like, like literally muscle is built by the struggle. And if you take away the struggle, then what is there?
We have this conversation with kids now. We tell them struggle builds character, but you know what we don't tell them? Hey, I'm sorry, man, but you have to struggle. It's not just like there's this aspirational thing of building character. It's either you get stronger or you get weaker and sicker and die.
Yeah.
We have to real talk with people about that.
Yeah.
But there's something about the conversation that we've been having, up to this point in the world throughout history where we haven't really been real about it. And it has to change now, especially over the last 100 years. The conversation has become unhealthy.
So I think that because marketing is a subset of consciousness, like sometimes you'll say my communication is weak. I say actually it's not a communication that is weak because you say what you think. So if this is unclear, It's like how can I improve this? Improve this.
That's right.
Because when you think clearly, you usually speak clearly.
Yeah.
But if you think unclearly, then actually your communication is great because it's a great reflection of your lack of clarity.
Bro, that's beautiful. It's right on, because all of this has to come internally, right? So part of this is getting your mind right, getting clarity, but also it's having your intentions right. If you understand that this is essential for our individual survival and our individual thriving, it's like, okay, now I see that clearly and I feel in my heart like, yeah, I want to continue to live in a world that works, right? This is the sincerity of it. The thing that's different is most people are not focused on that. What they're focused on is it's like they want to put paint over something that is broken. You know what I mean? Imagine you've got this really crappy car with a bad engine, but you make it look gorgeous on the outside. It's like, okay, it looks good, but it's dysfunctional, right? And so that's what everybody has done. It's like, okay, I want to look good. I want to do everything I can to change my appearance, but I don't want to change myself on the inside. And it's like, okay, you're going to experience some success as a result of that, but you're also going to create a path that leads to your own destruction.
So I feel that the way forward is as technology changes, we increase our consciousness, elevate our thinking, continue to realize that through the struggle and the hard work, that's where you get learnings. I think it's important to leverage tech without being completely consumed by tech.
Yeah.
Because eventually it's a human tendency also.
Yeah.
Because they want to pursue the path of least resistance. But behind the path of least resistance is a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah. You know what, man? We are born in nature and we're getting disconnected from nature. And the further and further and further we get disconnected from nature, the more and more dysfunctional we get, the sicker and sicker we get. Technology might be able to help us, but that's not going to change the fact that we are born of nature and live in nature and that we have to coexist with nature and get in tune with nature. Where scientists, and no disrespect to scientists, I respect scientists, but I respect real scientists. The scientists who are what I would say are the ones who have gone awry, are the ones who live under the illusion and the hubris that they have it all figured out. Because any cursory student of the history of science will tell you that you could probably count on a couple of hands the number of things that we have discovered that have not been revised and changed over time.
Yeah.
It's like we keep thinking, we act as if we've got it all figured out now. It's like, oh, I discovered this new thing. Now we understand the universe. Bro, the last 200 times we did that, we had to revise it. What makes you think that this time we've got it all figured out? Nature is consistent. We haven't cracked the complete code of nature, and maybe we never will.